Viewers, we would have all liked to see Indians winning the Nobel Prize for Peace. Indians are the most peace-loving, peacekeeping of the world's nationalities. Viewers, look at the amount of troops India has contributed to United Nations peacekeeping missions. In fact, we are the largest contributor in the world, and unfortunately also, viewers, sadly, we have lost the most number of soldiers in US peacekeeping missions. I would have thought that it would have been a fitting tribute had the Nobel Prize for Peace, for example, have been awarded to India's peacekeepers. There are several others in this country who are deserving. And this year, India was informed by Time magazine, no less, that two Indians, our citizens, countrymen, Mohammad Zubair and Pratik Sinha, self-styled fact-checkers, were favorites to win the prestigious prize. So, viewers, all eyes today, all hopes were set on the Nobel Committee. Time magazine's redoubtable reporter, Sania Manzoor, told us they are favorites because they were nominated for, quote, battling misinformation in India, unquote, where according to Time, quote, Hindu nationalist BJP party has been accused of frequently stoking discrimination against Muslims, unquote. But if they haven't won today, it is because, and we hate to break this to you, viewers, they were never favorites and possibly weren't even nominees. Indeed, viewers, India's hopes were inflated by an alleged con job of monumental proportions. Millions sat glued to TV in the hope to capture the moment. Remember, the awards were announced in Oslo, and there's always ceremony, pomp, pageantry, and we all wanted to capture that. Just a few years ago, Kailash Satyarthi had won this award, and obviously India was celebrating. It was such a proud moment, and therefore, once again, because hopes were so built up, you know, we had favorites. But as you know, it never happened. The moment never came. The award went to Belarusian and Ukrainian human rights groups, Russian human rights groups. So what happened? Now, viewers, let's begin at the beginning. The two so-called fact-checkers, Zubair and Sinha, set off the hype around their own names by immediately acknowledging the Time report through retweets and statements to the media saying such, quote, recognition makes it difficult for the state to go after us, unquote. So they thought that now that they had reached this exalted platform, the Indian state, I don't know for what reason they believe that the Indian state has it out for them, but nonetheless they said that, well, now it's going to make it very difficult for the state to go after us. Of course, Zubair has been charged with hate speech, and the ED has been examining his funds, and for that there are also questions asked, and for the former there was also an arrest. Now let me just quickly put down for you what Pratik Sinha, co-founder of Alt News, said to The Independent. And Pratik is a champion of Zubair, who he says is the most redeeming aspect of his entire operation. So he says, quote, recognition always helps in many ways, but most especially after the sort of ordeals we had to go through, unquote, certain recognition makes it difficult for the state to go after us. The reports of this nomination is especially one of them, unquote. Quote, irrespective of the report by Times magazine, it is quite visible that independent outlets in India are doing good work, unquote. Again, he goes on to say, this must continue to uphold democracy. This was Pratik Sinha to The Independent a few days back. But here's what's curious. Here's what's a little curious, viewers. The fact-checkers didn't appear to fact-check Time itself, the article that appeared in Time. Was there any factual basis for Time to claim Zubair and Sinha were among, quote, favorites, unquote, to win the Nobel Peace Prize? That's the fundamental question. The answer, viewers, is perhaps an emphatic no. We decided to investigate this ourselves. We wrote to the Norwegian Nobel Institute, which gives out the Nobel Peace Prize, and it categorically denied there was any shortlist or list of favorites it had put out. And that, quote, these advanced surmises are either the products of sheer speculation or information released by the persons or persons behind the nomination, unquote. This is what was said, and you can see, viewers, that's the response to us. That's Times Now writing in to this particular Nobel committee, and this is what we got in response. This response was sent to us by Eric Asheim, Project Manager, Media and Nobel Prize, Peace Prize Forum, date October 6, 2022. Neither the names of nominators nor of the nominees for the Nobel Peace Prize may be divulged until the start of the year marking the 50th anniversary of awarding a particular prize. So how this information purported to be authentic came out, or how Times sort of thought that this was really what they were reporting was factual, I don't know, viewers, because the Nobel certainly never puts out. In fact, the Norwegian Nobel Committee does not itself announce the names of nominees, neither to the media nor to the candidates themselves. Even they don't know. In fact, viewers, if you read the interview of the chief of this committee, he says that sometimes even the recipient only gets to know 1 hour before, and that is through a call. In certain cases, names of candidates appear in the media. These advanced surmises are either the product of sheer speculation or information released by the persons or persons behind the nomination. Now, we decided to dig further. The Time article relies on 3 references to base its claims about the list of, quote, favorites, unquote, for the prize. One, a survey of Norwegian lawmakers by Reuters in February this year, viewers. The Reuters piece, by the way, carries no mention of Zubair and Sinha. Yes, no mention of Zubair and Sinha, so their names weren't even put to the voters as options. So why would they have actually considered the Reuters survey? I don't know, but Time needs to answer. Second, bookmakers' odds were the Ukrainian president. Zelensky features prominently. So the third was bookmaker odds, where Ukrainian President Zelensky features prominently. And the third source they went to was a personal shortlist by the director of the Peace Research Institute in Oslo. So we also wrote to the director of this Peace Research Institute, Mr. Henrik Urdal, who told us that even he hadn't described Zubair and Sinha as, quote, favorites, unquote, but merely, quote, other worthy candidates, unquote. What's interesting is that Henrik Urdal is not associated in any way with the Nobel Forum, and neither is the Nobel Forum obliged to accept his recommendations. He's just another citizen. So Time had no reason to take his list as the gospel. Urdal told us that he routinely puts lists out on the website of his institute and doesn't formally share it with the Nobel Peace Prize panel. Most importantly, he was not even contacted by Time magazine when it proceeded to put it out, or put out his list, and for no conceivable reason branded Zubair and Sinha as favorites to win this prize. Now, let me go straight across to Padmaja Joshi. Padmaja Joshi, so thank you for joining us here, because we were seeing your broadcast earlier today. It's very interesting. The Time magazine bases their article, this claim that Zubair and Pratik Sinha were favorites, on 3 references. Can you just talk us through this a bit?
All right. So the 3 main sources where names purportedly have come up for the Time article. One is the Reuters survey, second is the bookmakers' odds, and the third is the PRIO directors list. Reuters survey has no mention. We've gone through the Reuters survey. It makes no mention of Mohammad, Zubair or Pratik Sinha at all. Second is the bookmakers' odds. Again, to put it in a nutshell, no mention at all of Mohammad, Zubair and Pratik Sinha or of Alt News. It's the PRIO directors list which has mention of Mohammad, Zubair and Pratik Sinha. Now, let me tell you very quickly, and we will pull up the shortlist of the PRIO director to quickly explain to you what is the reality of even this PRIO shortlist based on which supposedly they have been named as favorites. Here is the actual shortlist of Henry Kurdal. This is problematic on many levels. First of all, Henry Kurdal is the head of a think tank. There are billions of them across the world. He is a private individual who heads a think tank, and as he told us, he has put out his personal shortlist on a website. He in no way influences the Nobel Committee. Nobel Committee never asked him about who should be in the shortlist or the nominee or the winner. So here is an individual among billions of others across the world who has put out an individual opinion of who should be in the shortlist. Nonetheless, here is the shortlist. Here are the 5 names. You've got a Miss Svetlana, you've got Alexei Navlani, International Court of Justice, Harsh Mandar Karwane Mohammad, Ilham Tohti, Agnes Chow, Nathan Law, HRDSG and Canvas. 5 names. So I just read out these names. Mohammad, Zubair, Pratik Sinha, again not here. Not even here. They do find mention, but where? They find mention in the paragraph which is given to describe Mr. Harsh Mandar as, and I quote, other worthy candidates for a prize focused on combating religious extremism in India are Mohammad, Zubair and Pratik Sinha. Favorites, other worthy candidates. Nobel Peace Committee, an individual who heads a think tank. And that, if we go back to the flow chart, in a nutshell, is the reason why this just never added up. You claim in a piece that these gentlemen are favorites. Great news. Everyone was thrilled with it. But whose favorites? Based on what? What are the facts? How did you know? Who verified it? That still remains unanswered. We sent an email to Time, which we still haven't gotten an answer to.
Absolutely. We decided to ask Time how they decided to elevate Zubair and Sinha to, quote, favorites, unquote, to win the Nobel Peace Prize when the claim rested on flimsy factual foundations. We sent a detailed questionnaire to Time magazine as well as the author of the article, Sania Mansoor, and we still haven't received a response. I don't know why. We're still awaiting it. This is not a hit job, viewers, on anyone. It's just that, you know, hope and expectation was raised, and to sort of think that all of this happened because of, I don't know, some sort of a attempt to maybe hype something that wasn't really true, you feel a bit cheated. And I wonder why fact checkers, as diligent as Zubair calls himself and Pratik call themselves, Pratik Sinha calls himself, wouldn't have actually even fact checked Time. It just doesn't take very much. What is interesting is that Zubair tweeted, and this is very interesting, in light of Nobel Prize reports, we got this wholesome donation. For us, your support is the biggest award. Now, many people, viewers, in hindsight, might wonder, was all of this done? I'm not saying it's collusion or anything, but this tweeting by Zubair and his partner, Pratik Sinha, was done of this Time article without fact-checking it to perhaps boost their own credentials, maybe attract funding, etc. I don't know. This is a question that could be put on the back of this tweet. And or was it done to show that they were the only ones sort of standing up to the Modi government, which, as you know, has been described by the Times journalist as a regime that is going against Muslims. It's, as Time said, frequently stoking discrimination against Muslims. So was it a setup job? Was it a sort of a con job? I don't know. But let's open this up, viewers, because there are some questions that obviously pop up in the head. And remember, viewers, there is an ecosystem, and it's been commented upon by many people, is an ecosystem that is invested in running down the country, the regime that is in power right now. And we've seen it during the CA protests. A lie was concocted to suggest that if one were to bring in the CA law, if it was notified, Muslims would lose their citizenship, when it didn't even apply in any way to Muslims. We know that in the past, viewers, there has been a massive campaign of calumny against Article 370 that will disenfranchise people. In fact, what we've now realized it actually enfranchises many more sections of Kashmiri society. We know that a certain foreign publication came out and said that India handled its COVID very badly, that the death figures were actually 10 times, if not more, than what is being claimed by the government. There was even this sort of attack on the vaccine. We know that in the past we have had a commentary on the farm laws. We've had international big names come out and talk about the deleterious effects of the farm laws. Several such things. There was even this whole narrative that there were church attacks and people, notable citizens, returned their awards to the government. It turned out at the end of the day that they were break and entry crimes committed by, mischief mongers who wanted to get in there and rob and loot the churches, etc. They had nothing to do with hate. We know there's a campaign that is running about how Muslims are being disenfranchised in India because of various laws that are promulgated, etc. So is this some way connected with the larger sort of ecosystem that goes out there and tries to sort of besmirch India's image? Are these all pretexts? So let's open this up, viewers. Let's ask some questions. And I want to begin first with Rashmi Sawant, Aarti Tikku, Ratan Sharda. Advaita Kala is also with us. Let me first begin with you, Aarti Tikku. How do you see this? This is, it would not take much to fact check this. Where's this hype? Why did it all take place? Were we being conned? And if so, to what end?
Well, Rahul, I'm hearing my echo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead. Let's try to.
So Rahul,
yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
The issue is that alt news and these so-called fact checkers, whether it's Zubair or Pratik Sinha, we know they're ideologically motivated. We also know they have an ideological base, not just in India, but across the world. And we did see how they, mobilized youth, they mobilized writers, they mobilized violence against Nupur Sharma over her statement on a television channel, in fact, on your channel. So anyone who thinks that these people, these two gentlemen are really fact checkers is either naive or they don't understand what these people have been doing on their platform. The second point is that if there was absolutely no mention by the Norwegian Nobel Committee and nobody else really recommended them, then it's a serious issue. I think it is... it really puts a big question mark on the credibility of Time magazine. But as a journalist who has been observing Western media for a very long time, who has been following their work for a long time, I would say to begin with, they do not have any credibility left anymore, because for the last 3 decades, the Western media has consistently being used by their own political masters in their respective countries as weapons against developing countries like India. So I'm not surprised that Time is a party. It's a criminal party in this fake narrative, this fake information.
Well, these
there
are
is a serious
words.
Case of basically fake news.
These are strong words, and neither has Time responded. Neither has Time responded to Times Now. I said these are very strong adjectives you're using: criminality, etc. I wouldn't want to underwrite those. Times Now will never want to underwrite those. That's why we sought Time magazine's response, but we haven't got one, and we are wondering because the Nobel Committee responded to us within hours. In fact, we sent the mail in the morning. And within a few hours, I think maybe at daybreak, etc., immediately we got a response. Even the gentleman who is part of the PRI, which is a very notable NGO, responded to us very, very quickly. And I'm talking about Henrik Uldar. So you know, all of these people were very quick and prompt, but time sort of went completely radio silence, don't know where they are. But look, I don't want to attribute motives right now, but I think the larger point you're trying to make, Aarti Tikku, and look, I can't speak for Mr. Zubair and Pratik Sinha, they're not here. So I wouldn't even like to sort of cast aspersions. It's sad that they missed out. I mean, you know, who wouldn't want to see Indians sort of, but the
question is that, the question is that were they nominated to begin with? If they were not nominated, what did they really miss?
Yeah, because see, if I were told that I am the favorite, if I were told by a publication, you know, as big as Time, now, you know, New York Times the other day, viewers, went ahead and sort of rubber-stamped Arvind Kejriwal's education model, and now, of course, you have Time. And so, you know, these international publications have huge resonance, and we all grew up reading Time magazine. It was, you know, it still is, got a huge sort of credibility associated with it. I don't know how they sort of based, you know, because none of the references check out. So where did this word favorites come from? Advaita Kala, I mean, how would Time make that leap of faith? And you know, I mean, it's okay, fine. You sort of want to say that, look, it was Reuters, but Reuters didn't even put these people's names out for a poll. So if you're not even in the list, how did you even come up? Then the second obvious thing was, the second stop was that the bookmakers, now bookmakers are, you know, betting agencies, and even they had Zelensky marked out. And then they go to the PRI, Henrik Urdal, and even he didn't have them amongst his favorites. There were other honorable mentions at the bottom in a paragraph. So how does suddenly, you know, all of this translate into becoming favorites? I don't know. And what do you think was the motive here? Or everyone was working together to redeem the image of Zubair, who has, of course, had trouble with the law. Was that really the intention? I don't know. I'm asking you, what do you think? I think you're on mute, Advaita Kala. You're on mute. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually just really saddened by this. You know, I've worked with Time magazine actually, not as a journalist, right, but certainly in a capacity where I was interacting with journalists from across the subcontinent and across the world who wrote for Time magazine. And I recall, this is around 2008-9, just how rigorous they were, and how much of a ear to the ground and how much of an eye they had for what was coming up, you know, what was next. I shared this on Twitter. I remember in 2008 when we were heading into 2009 and Mr. Advani was all over the place, they were tracking Modi. And I remember asking one of the journalists that why, and an international journalist, not a domestic one, that, you know, why are you looking at him so closely? And they said, this is the guy to watch out for. And, you know, not being a journalist myself, you know, I was intrigued by that foresight that nearly 6 years before Prime Minister became Prime Minister Modi, and he was just one of the CMs of a state in India, they were already kind of looking at him very seriously. And this was what you're right, we grew up reading Time magazine. I mean, for me, it was a big deal to work for Time magazine. And knowing how rigorous they were, I'm just shocked that this could happen, that there is no mention of a favorite in any of those three sites quoted. Now, there's a standard that you have to have 3 sources. So she's definitely checked that standard. But again, you know, the journalist has gone ahead and made up her own favorites list. And how did this pass Time magazine's, editorial standards? Just because it's online, that's why it gets put out there? I think it's just so embarrassing. Of course, magazines are suffering. Of course, print is suffering at this time. And you have to be out there and you need money. I don't know, follow the money. I don't know what the reason would be why such a venerated journalistic institution would compromise themselves.
What worries me is the immediate tweet. In light of Nobel Prize reports, we got this wholesome donation. Now, remember, when you're picked out by the Nobel, first of all, they never tell you who they're nominating or who the nominees are. But if you do get picked out or there is buzz around you, you know, your position globally in a very different light. Aarti Tikku, you've been a journalist, you know how that works. You know, you're in a different stratosphere. Let's put it like that. And obviously, people want to join your cause, especially if you have a cause and you espouse it aggressively. People say, well, these guys must be doing something right. Let's wholeheartedly commit. And what do you commit most often? You commit your support, encouragement, and resources. And here, Zubair makes this in the light of Nobel Prize reports. We got this wholesome donation. For us, your support is the biggest award. Now, some people will say it's too much of a coincidence. They retweet a report which is actually flimsy factually. It's on a very credible platform which allows others to have faith in this and builds up this sort of, these two individuals. And then they get donations and they thank people for your donations because, as they say, your support is the biggest award. Aarti Tikku.
Well, that's the point, that Time magazine, it may have been a very popular magazine at some point of time, and because we didn't know anything better, we didn't read anything better, we thought Time was the epitome of credibility and professional journalism. But the evidence is right in front of us that they did not do any fact-checking, they did not do any cross-verification. And the so-called fact-checkers, Pratik Sinha and Zubair, did not actually provide any evidence of their own nomination to their readers and to their admirers. So what we really are seeing is actually, I would say, a breakdown of all the brands of media worldwide. And we are actually seeing that how the so-called mainstream media in the West, which, created a halo of credibility around them, are actually not credible. They're just as good as anybody else in the world.
So you're saying that they're part of an ecosystem, correct me if I'm wrong, is that what you're saying, that is into activism and they want to sort of, at some level, besmirch India, use every pretext, etc., to do that? Is that what you're saying, Aarti Tikku? There is a sort of an ecosystem.
Yes, it is an ecosystem. It is funded by a lot of lobbies around the world. We know whether it's Time magazine or NYT, Reuters, BBC, their position on, for example, conflicts around the world. They have taken positions which are in alignment with the respective governments rather than having an objective view of conflicts, whether it's Kashmir or elsewhere. Even on Ukraine today, we see mainstream media in the West completely biased in favor of Ukraine. They're not taking a non-partisan stand. So really the question is about the mainstream media,
well, we all
especially
remember that hunt for chemical and biological weapons in Iraq, viewers. No fan of Saddam Hussein, but a fake news was created. The movies have now been made by American movie makers starring top actors exposing the big lie that was sold. Hans Blix, we all know where that went. And then you had the pretext for a war, in fact, based on non-existent evidence. Nonetheless, viewers, let's open this up further. I want to bring in Akashdeep Munu. He's raising his hand, and there is, of course, Ratan Sharda and Rashmi Samant and Anirban Banerjee. So, Mr. Muni, what is going on here? Dr. Muni, what's going on here? Is this part of the larger ecosystem at work to subsume, to bring sort of attention, if they think that it can be done, to the government and then sort of embarrass it? Is that what we are seeing here?
Okay. Rahul, just give me a minute of uninterrupted time and I'll reply and debunk all the propositions given here.
Right.
First and foremost, remember since some time there has been reports that for the first time in the history of independent India, the Arabian countries have issued a circular against India. For the first time, it has been seen that there have been numerous reports in the international media against India, and this particular report is also an example of how there is reports against Indian government in international media. So this shows that there is somewhere where we faltered in our diplomacy in confronting the international media. First. Second thing is that you've shown an email. This email is not from Time magazine. It is an email. It's from the Nobel Committee, and this particular article is from Time magazine, and they have made speculations. This is not from Zubair, and neither it is from Pratik Sinha. So there cannot be any allegation confronted of besmirching India's image. This whole thing is not a way of besmirching, but it is a diplomatic failure which we have seen. And
diplomatic failure. Sorry, I'm not understanding. First, you said Arabian countries have issued statements against India. Now, let me tell you, viewers, there is an Arabian country. I don't know why he uses the word Arabian. First of all, he must be meaning Gulf countries. Nonetheless, one Gulf country, UAE. Now, UAE, viewers, is an interesting case because it has become a very close ally of India's, and also France. There is this iconic photograph that I saw the other day where Dr. Shivshankar is standing right in the middle. On one side is the French foreign minister, on the other side is the UAE foreign minister. The UAE foreign minister has no problems sharing a stage with the French foreign minister. The French foreign minister, forget about Nupur Sharma, the French foreign minister represents a government that actually actively published the cartoons against the Prophet. And they have no problems doing business with the French in the company of India. So this whole hyperbole of, oh, the so-called, I don't even know why he calls them Arabian nations, such a racist term. Nonetheless, Gulf countries have some peculiar, axe to grind with India. Sir, please forget it. Today I'll tell you, even Ukraine did not vote. It abstained in the UN when it came to securing a discussion about China and its human rights records against Uyghurs. Even Ukraine that lectures us on being on the right side, the need to be on the right side of history. So let us today not talk about foreign countries, sir. Akashdeep Muni, doctor, you're a very bright man. I want to bring in Ratan Sharda. It's very glib, sir. Very nice big sentences you're making. Let's not pretend that there are not players and actors who, and this is, viewers, you see the Cold War, the history, lots of newspapers were propped up in different parts of the world to take on Russia, the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union funded its own intellectuals, etc. This is standard international subterfuge tactics, and it's very well appreciated. We all know this, so let's not try to kid each other. There are people who don't want to see India succeed, and obviously because India is now emerging as a massive power. So, let's not be so naive. Ratan Sharda, how do you respond to the naive assessments of Dr. Muni and, his Arabian, I don't know, the word that he uses strangely, I wouldn't want to subscribe to that. Not every person in the Gulf is Arabian and has Arabian Nights, fantasies, etc. So let's, Dr. Muni, let's at least get our terminology right, please. Let's not do this. Please. Yeah. Yes, Ratan Sharda, go ahead.
Rahul, first of all, congratulations on your team for doing a very meticulous work which cannot be challenged on grounds of being, biased or anything. You went to everybody to collect the right data. Unfortunately, the so-called fact checkers did not fact check their own issue. It is surprising that a fact checker who is supposed to be doing fact checker of the world and every possible person did not care to check that particular news item. And not only that, you see the list of people, gullible people who went straight for it. There was the Hindu. They have enough resources like you to do what they wanted to do. NDTV. There was this another one, India Today. All these people, I'm not calling names because I have these axe to grind, because these are the people who immediately broadcast this news without checking. And knowing that these kind of, at least the experienced people should know that time is no more the gold standard of journalism. So they should have cross-checked immediately. They have the resources. They did not. It shows the lax kind of journalism that goes today in the name of journalism. Secondly, it was very amusing for me also. It's on the day when there are so many tense situations, so many tense debates, the amusing debate, amusing discussion on these two Wardis, that I remembered a Wardi journalist who became a Harvard professor for a night, and then she realized that there was some problem with the email. We have such journalists, gullible journalists. We have such gullible people. Even the name of Harsh Mandar, I'm surprised. Is Nobel Prize going so much down the drain that they find these people worthy of Nobel Prize where there are hundreds of people who have done much better work in India itself.
Well, so that,
and
of course, is a larger debate of who's deserving and all of that. So let's not go there.
But see, I am saying there is an ecosystem. Nobody said openly. I'm saying it's an ecosystem.
Okay.
Remember how every news gets
I will tell you.
how every news gets across the world. Just a moment.
1 second, Dr. Muni. He never interrupted you. Let him finish. I'll bring you in. No problem.
We had this, all the news from India, whether CAA, whether Farmers' Bill, or any kind of smallest atrocities getting multiplied across the world platform within hours. So you have a very strong law of your left illiberal Islamist forces across the world. When one small IT news item created one left journalist at the dead of the night about some migrants leaving Delhi who were actually, persuaded to leave Delhi.
Okay.
And then it becomes a news across the world before even people are across
So
the
you're
border.
saying there's an ecosystem that's invested in trying to
actually use this to raise divert their attention
poke
from
India
the
in the eye.
serious criminal issues they have.
Okay.
That is the reason they use this particular news item. I don't know whether they created, but they use. And look at the young journalist Sania Mansoor. So this Sania Mansoor is taken as a serious journalist by Time magazine. Will any action be taken against her? This lady who must have some kind of...
Well, sir, I don't know about that. Let's not name call people. You know, who knows? I don't know what the... That's for Times to figure out with the author. I didn't even name the author. Let that internal inquiry take place. But I don't know why Time hasn't responded to us. Now, we've sent them enough to 2 or 3 mails, etc. We've done what we had to do. I just want to bring in Anirban Banerjee on this. Anirban Banerjee, instead of fact-checking this Time article, why did the quote favorites unquote overhype the article? The first thing you would do, I'm sure, if someone said you were the favorite to win a Nobel, you would go and ask that person, how do you know? On what basis are you making this claim? Before you say, yes, thank you very much, love you, thank you. This is being done, and this is a great leg up for our great journalism. And this is what, in fact, let me tell you what Pratik Sinha put out there. He, in fact, goes out there and actually talks about how this is going to sort of transform and give them this sort of big leap of faith. Recognition always helps in many ways, but most especially after the sort of ordeals we had to go through, certain recognitions make it difficult for the state to go after us. The report of this nomination is especially one of them. So was this used to position themselves as victims and give themselves some big halo?
See,
why wouldn't they fact check it, sir?
See, whether Pratik and Zubair have fact-checked this report or not, I think it is for them to best answer this question. And till Time magazine replies to your email, it is very difficult to consider what the exact facts or the sources they were really depending upon to put out this story.
Right.
I have nobody to comment for or against any media organization around the world. Therefore, I don't think this is a battle between the Time and the Times now, because both are very credible media organizations. Maybe they will reply in time. We will get to know
hasn't responded to us.
the details of the story.
No, Anirban Banerjee, see, you're not taking a position. Had this been an article, let me tell you, had this been a mistake committed by Times now, I know what you would have said. And I know what you say on your Twitter handle and in public. So let's not give such wide berth, lovely, sweet, sugar-coated words, etc. It's a flow, sir. Let's get to the brass tack. Let me bring in Rashmi Samant.
If you want to, if you want to attack the Time magazine, you can.
I am not attacking the Time magazine. I'm wondering why
are some people...
I'm not attacking Time magazine. I'm wondering at 2 things. The very quick retweets by Zubair of this. Now, you see, I'm told that he's a very, very, censorious, extremely diligent journalist who looks at every line that every media organization puts out. Except for, of course, I'm also told that he has an eye patch on one side of his face, apparently metaphoric, on the left. So he can't see what is going on the left of the media spectrum. He only sees everything that is going on the conservative right side of the media spectrum. His eyes sort of,
see that
flicker
work,
and flash
the work of,
at everything that Times Now and its anchors and everyone says, but he's completely saying saying is all these people are using all of this and they call themselves the gold standard of journalism. So Rashmi Sawant, what do you make of this? I'm not understanding what is going on here. There is something here, and look at the grandstanding. Certain recognitions make it difficult for the state to go after us. The reports of this nomination is especially one of them. He's already accepted there is a nomination, when they all know that the Nobel Committee never even announces who's the nominee. This is not the Oscars award and the nominees are, and then there are oohs and ahs and people roll their eyes and the jaw drops and then they all clap and cheer.
Why are some people on the panel today so unhappy?
People shouldn't be really surprised because this is the modus operandi of the duo.
Because sir,
and it has
taken
been
for a
quite
ride
for some time.
Yes, please go ahead, Rashmi.
The false report is unfortunately, I think, only the latest in this litany of propaganda that is being continuously used to undermine India internationally. Only now do we have social media, do we have access on the internet to actually contact these people and fact check it for ourselves.
The BJP
Otherwise,
and not undermining anyone. They have been reporting.
Please.
Okay, Anirban ji, let her finish. She never interrupted you. You'll concede that point, right? Please. You can always come back. I'll give you the space. No problem. You have 5 minutes more on this debate. Please go ahead, Rashmi Sawant. Sorry.
So it is actually very unfortunate that this kind of propaganda is being dangerously spread on an international stage for personal gains. We can clearly see that there's a rise in the funding. They're actually acknowledging the fact that they've got funding because of this report. Can you imagine there's a false report and people are actually making money on the back of this kind of false report? And it only goes on to show how deep this kind of ecosystem is seated and how they're mutually helping each other to survive at this point.
Okay, so Anirban Banerjee, Rashmi Sawant believes that this is all orchestrated. It's a ploy to perhaps benefit somebody in a manner that doesn't sort of, meet the standards of propriety. Yes, Anirban Banerjee. 1 second, let Anirban Banerjee respond.
There are people even today. There are people even today who believe that the earth is actually flat and not round. So therefore anybody is entitled to their belief. I have no problems with that. But the funny thing is that some people on the panel are very happy that the Peace Prize has not come to India. So
I don't think that's
Pratik
true.
and Zubair, I didn't think that they were this important that the RSS BJP, such a big ecosystem, they are getting so upset by the very, very small work they do.
Let me put this question to both.
Check everything that comes out, especially on the social media.
So there is delight, Schadenfreude, as Anirban Banerjee calls it, a feeling of delight. It's almost masochistic, he says. So, okay, let me bring in Ratan Sharda and Aarti Tikku to quickly respond, and Advaita and Dr. Muni right after that. Yes, Aarti Tikku, Ratan Sharda first, go ahead. Yes.
To imagine that I believe these two worthies are equated to India is very amusing, first of all. As I said, we have wonderful, worthy people who could be nominated for the Nobel Prize. But to say these two people equate to India, I'm sorry, I don't give that importance to these people. Just a moment. And what does PRIO say? Very important. The PRIO says, see the agenda. PRIO, when writing the report, says India as a under Hindu nationalist government in which violence against Muslims is increasing, against which these people are fighting. This is the report made by PRIO, which has been quoted by Time magazine journalists. Can't you see the connection? Can't you see the agenda?
There's a connection. Aarti Tikku, is there a connection? What's going on here?
Well, Rahul, I'm really happy, delighted that Nobel Peace Prize was not given to people who are accused of mobilizing violence in India. It would be an irony. I think we have saved ourselves an embarrassment by whosoever actually did not. Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's ridiculous that people who are involved in peddling communal hatred day in, day out, people
That's
who
all
are
allegations.
mobilizing people.
They're allegations.
Who have been.
Are you referring to Mr. Modi and Amit Shah?
They're allegations.
No,
I'm referring to what Zubair did after
those are allegations.
After Nupur Sharma's statement.
That's an allegation. isn't it? That's an allegation.
I'm delighted and relieved that Nobel Peace Prize was not.
Okay, one second, sir. Anirbanji, 1 minute, please.
Was not given to writers.
Sir, let her finish.
Why did the BJP suspend her?
Okay, don't speak over it. We've had a very intense debate without speaking over each other. Let's not do that, gentlemen, please. 1 second. Yes, Aarti Tikku, make your point quickly. I want to bring in Dr. Muni and right after that, Advaita Kala, and try to wrap this up. Yes, I don't have much time. Yes.
My only point is that we should be thankful that Nobel Peace Prize has not been given to accused who are actually fighting a case in the court at the moment.
Okay. Dr. Muni, very quickly. Yes.
You know, Rahul, this is very interesting to see.
There was no factual basis to the list.
I'll be factual. This is very interesting to see that there is an article where a magazine has stated that these are the favorites. And there is no such, let me complete. There is no such important specific references in altnews.com about this particular Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, but now you are saying that these people have an ecosystem which is
they've
stack up. And 1 minute.
Okay, sir, you don't want to see the facts. Listen, I can't have a debate with somebody who's even denying the most basic facts. So let's you please study your subject. Don't listen. 1 second, doctor. I don't have the time to now go back over the whole Ram Katha. Please, I don't have that time. You know, and you're being obfuscated. It's okay. It's fine, sir. I can see the little smirk on your face. It's fine. It's okay. It doesn't matter. You don't have to sit and defend anybody. It's not your name that's going down the tube here. 1 second. Let me very quickly, viewers, there are some key takeaways and there are some big questions and I want to quickly sum them up. Very quickly, I've run out of time. There was no factual basis to list Mohammad, Zubair and Pratik Sinha as favorites to win the Nobel Peace Prize. It's now quite clear. We've dissected the Time article. We've contacted at least 2 of the sources they were relying on. Nobel Institute to Times Now has described such surmises as sheer speculation. Why would they have done so if there was some truth to all of this? Nominations are not disclosed to public by committee for 50 years. The PRIO director cited by Time magazine had no formal role in the nomination process. PRI director was not approached by Time magazine for comment. On what basis was, according to Time, he sort of flagging them up as favorites? Reuters article about survey of Norwegian lawmakers cited by Time magazine does not even mention Zubair and Sinha. Zubair and Sinha acknowledged messages of support after Time magazine report. Why did they do so? Why didn't they fact check? It's a question that they can answer. Ecosystem congratulates Zubair and Sinha for the nomination. No response by Time magazine to Times Now's questionnaire. This is how matters stand. We've written 20 hours in counting, I'm told, by Siddharth Talia, our lead researcher, who has actually written those mails. I move on, viewers. I move on. There are many big questions. These questions raise big doubts about what is going on. But I now move on, viewers. And you can